There's nothing positive to be said about a diet soda.
No, there really
nothing.
isn't.
There's not one thing. I mean,
No.
the biggest failed experiment with us as lab rats.
Yeah. We really are very much lab rats in so many ways with this whole, chemistry, better living through chemistry.
Hey, it's JJ and welcome to Ask the Health Expert. But this isn't just any old Ask the Health Expert session. This is your bonus session. Yes, it's the weekend, and because it's the weekend, we are going to take some time with an amazing expert. So be on the lookout for these Saturday Ask the Health Expert bonus sessions where we're going to go deep into an amazing subject with an incredible expert to give you actionable items that you can put into your life. Hey, it's JJ, and today we are going to be talking about fast, feast, repeat. Yep, we'll talk intermittent fasting with Jen Stevens herself. She's a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of that book. Plus, she's got Delay, Don't Deny, Living an Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle, an Amazon #1 bestseller, and 3 top-ranked podcasts, Intermittent Fasting Stories, the Intermittent Fasting Podcast with co-host Melanie Avalon, and Life Lessons Podcast with co-host Sherry Bullock. So she's got a super interesting story. I'm going to let her tell it. But basically, Jen is an integrative nutrition health coach from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And she's got her doctorate in education and a master's in natural sciences. So she really did a deep dive into learning when she was searching for how to finally lose the weight and landing on intermittent fasting. Since then, she has become one of the world-recognized experts in intermittent fasting. And since we get so many questions about it, that would be super fun to have her with us today. You're going to love this interview, and you're going to want to hang out with her, and you'll be able to do that and join her groups by going to jjvirgin.com/GIN Jen. All right, I'll be right back with Jen Stevens. Stay with me. All right. Okay. So we are talking fasting, intermittent fasting, feasting. And what I'd love to start with, like, who says, oh, my favorite is fasting? No, don't give me that feasting.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of good fast in the fasting too. We could talk about that. But yeah, the feasting, we
if
love that.
You had to ask me, prefer fast or feast, I think I'd say feast. So, but let's talk, Jen, about how you got into this. Because were you a school teacher? What were you doing? Now all of a sudden you're okay. So school teacher to like massive New York Times bestselling author, fasting expert. What the heck happened?
It's a crazy story. I struggled with dieting and being overweight, like so many of your listeners, I'm certain, have struggled with. And, I'm a smart person. I have a doctorate in gifted education. Why could I not figure out what to do about my weight? A funny story, one of the books I read along the way was The Virgin Diet.
Oh, really?
Yes. In fact, my sister's best friend is a huge fan, and she follows it to this day. She loves The Virgin Diet. So I thought I would tell you that. Yeah. But, I was always trying to figure out what I could eat, what foods worked best for me. And yet I was getting bigger and bigger until, in 2014, I weighed 210 pounds. I was obese. And
eating healthy and trying to do everything right. So no.
Well, no.
All right.
No. I'm working on a new book right now, and I just wrote a section today where I talk about, my past with dieting. I was raised on ultra processed foods, JJ.
And you're Southern, so you got the Southern food thing.
I am. And, I ate a lot of things like SpaghettiOs, ravioli, Chef Boyardee. Remember when you could buy those chicken pot pies that were in the aluminum pans and the frozen dinners
I remember
in the aluminum pans? Maybe y'all didn't eat those, but
my nickname growing up was Poppy because of the amount of Pop-Tarts I ate.
Okay.
So, right.
Okay,
breakfast was
Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts, frosted ones, or Cocoa Puffs. And then we loved those TV dinners. Oh my gosh. TV dinners.
TV dinners,
right?
That's what they were called, TV dinners. And they would take 45 minutes in the oven.
Well, there were no microwaves.
No, there were no microwaves, and they were in aluminum pans. But my favorite was Beans and Franks by Morton's. I still remember this. Beans and Franks, and it had cornbread, and it had this apple something or other. That was it. And yeah, it was so good. There was my fruit. So, and I ate Flintstones vitamins.
Oh boy.
You know.
Okay.
I was so healthy, right? But no, I was raised on ultra processed foods. And so I grew up as an adult with the palate of like a kid. You know, I just, you know, I found out I was a super taster, which is true, you know. So I used that as an excuse.
Well, actually, super tasters tend to be thinner than regular tasters because they're pickier.
Yeah, well, I was just able to eat all sorts of, yes, I was picky in the wrong direction, but you know, I had to do something, and I tried everything. I mean, when your book came out, I like desperately gravitated towards it, but I couldn't eat all those foods because I was eating all the junk foods. That's what I wanted to eat. So really, I wanted a way to keep eating my ultra processed diet of junk and lose the weight. And intermittent fasting did that for me. So I was able to lose the weight eating the same foods I had been eating. Now, to this day, I eat completely differently. I am like,
okay, I was just going to say, oh my gosh, wait a minute, hold, interview
sorry.
over.
I am, and I'm writing a chapter right now in my book, my whole evolution of how I've evolved to who I am today over the years.
Yeah, it's like, is this the Twinkie fasting diet? Because we didn't sign up for this. Okay, all right.
Not at all. And, but my taste changed naturally. You know, I really think embracing black coffee as part of a clean fast, really made a difference there because suddenly my taste buds could tolerate black coffee. And then all of a sudden vegetables weren't so bad either. And when I went on with intermittent fasting to lose, first I lost 75 pounds eating, you know, the standard junky diet. Although there was a period of time right towards the end when I wanted to lose more quickly, when I cut out ultra processed foods, and I was losing like 2 pounds a week with intermittent fasting and no ultra processed foods. And this was at the end of my weight loss. So I hit my goal in 2015, lost those 75 pounds, went on to lose about 5 pounds more. And I've been maintaining ever since 2015.
Which is everything.
It really is. I've even been through menopause since then. I'm 51.
So that's even like you maintain through menopause. You should get a trophy.
My waist is smaller today than it was a year ago. Of course, I had a little pandemic puff going on. But
is that what it's called? The pandemic puff? I didn't know.
I don't know. I just made that up. But my waist is smaller today than it was a year ago. And I'm officially on the other side of menopause. But yes, intermittent fasting changed everything. It changed what I wanted to eat over time. The more I learned, the more I changed what I ate, the better I felt.
So, because I remember when Sugar Impact Diet came out, I went on the Today Show and they had this segment. I thought, this is the weirdest idea. They put me and David Chinchenko together to do this segment.
He's the 8-hour diet guy, right?
He's the 8-hour, but he was before the 8-hour diet. He was eat this, not that.
Right. He's sure. I had all those too.
Right. So he was doing eat this, not that. Now the 8-hour diet is no, eat that, but just only during this time. I go, this is so confusing, David. Like, and how come and how are you with me over here saying just don't eat sugar? And you're saying don't eat during this time. You know, it's like ridiculous. So I think part of, fasting, intermittent fasting's first allure to people was like, you know, when it first came out and it was that 8-hour window, people were saying, as long as you eat it within that 8-hour window, it's all good. I'm like, come on.
I bought that book and tried it, and an 8-hour window with whatever I wanted did not work for me.
No.
A 5-hour window with whatever I wanted did work for me, but 8, no.
No, there's just way too much damage that could be done in 8 hours. All right. So how did you move away from the ultra processed intermittent fasting diet to a healthy intermittent fasting diet? How did you make that shift?
You know, my second book I wrote in 2017, my first book, Delay, Don't Deny, Living an Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle, I self-published that in 2016. And my second one, I wanted to write about food because, I had these Facebook support communities that were growing as, more and more people were reading my first book, Delay Don't Deny, and then joining. And then people were coming in and they wanted to argue about what we should be eating.
That's so fun.
You're in the diet world. It was so fun. And then we had,
no, we need gluten. That's what I got when I wrote Virgin Diet. You're going to be nutrient deficient if you don't eat gluten. I'm like, huh?
Well, people were like, everyone must be low carb. If you're doing intermittent fasting and you're not low carb, you're just really dumb. I'm like, no, that's not true. Everyone does not need to be low carb. And then we had, anyway, everyone was arguing over what to eat. So I was like, I'm just going to read everything I can find. I'm a teacher. I was on summer break. I'm going to write a book. And that was when I wrote Feast Without Fear, my second book, also self-published. And I really dug in deep to gut health and also the blue zones during that time. And also, a little bit of the DNA and how we're all different in that regard. Although we're learning now that it's more gut than DNA, Right. But this was 2017 and we've learned so much since even then. And just realizing the importance of food and the power of food and all these centenarians that were living in the blue zones that were eating, vegetables.
Yeah, they're good, those vegetables.
Yeah, they were feeding their gut, the food that your gut microbiome needs to thrive. And so I started changing what I was eating. And I also subscribed. Do you remember Plated, the food delivery meal kit company?
No, but I was traveling so much that I could never have a food delivery company.
Well, Plated, I was using Plated at that time. And so I started getting more adventurous with what I was ordering. And, I was like, well, I don't think I like Brussels sprouts, but I'm going to order this
you went
Brussels
right
sprout
to advanced.
pizza. Well, I did. I was like, although there is a funny story that I shared in my, on my podcast before and with my Facebook group. So your listeners probably haven't heard it, but it was the fish story where I ordered this Mediterranean meal because I was so inspired by the Mediterranean foods. And it was, I think, a Green Chef meal. And I was going to eat this fish. And I was sitting at the dinner table crying because I don't like fish.
You don't like any fish?
I don't like fish. I like shellfish. I like lobster. I like crab. I like shrimp.
No
but
salmon?
I do not like fish. No, I've tried. And so I'm sitting there in my one meal a day, with my intermittent fasting. And I had this beautiful meal and it's fish and I'm just crying. And I'm like, I just don't like fish. So.
All right. I won't send you a fish present.
Don't send me a fish gift, please. But I learned that there really wasn't hardly a vegetable that I tried that I didn't like. And so now my diet is completely different. Very few ultra processed foods. Every now and then I'll have some Triscuits or something, but I crave vegetables. I don't eat as much dairy as I used to. It's amazing.
I'm jumping up and down over here in my seat.
Yeah.
But it is true. You can totally retrain your taste buds.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, the fact that I grew up on Pop-Tarts and Cocoa Puffs, you can totally get rid of that stuff and retrain them and like these foods.
You can. I mean, I would not eat a Pop-Tart now if someone tried to make me, but I would still probably eat a Dorito. I'm not saying I'm...
But you can have a Siete. There's a Siete version of a Dorito out there too. So there's still those healthy swaps. And I will tell you, I had to test what would I think of a Pop-Tart today? And yes, they do not hold that same allure as they used to.
They don't.
No, they just don't. So,
and it's sad.
It's
because you had that reminiscent pleasure of childhood, and then you're like, "This is so bad."
Have you? I don't know if you ever went to Disneyland as a kid, but
only Disney World.
So I went. I remember taking my kids to Disneyland, and I hadn't been there since I was a little kid, and walking in and thinking it'd be so magical, and you see like what it really, it's like the paint chipping and the big. It just wasn't the same. So you can't go back. So we're just going to let the Pop-Tarts go. Yeah. So then we can just retire this whole idea that you can pretty much eat what you want within this 8 hours. So
definitely not within 8 hours. No.
So what is this? What's the idea of a clean fast then? What does it look like?
Well, that is really something that I'm very different when it comes to, what do we have during fasting? Because I'm pretty much a fasting purist because I have researched to figure out what do we want to have happening during the fast? Why are we fasting? It's not just so we can take in fewer calories over the course of our day. And of course, that's what we thought in the beginning, early on, back when I started fasting. we all thought it was just a way of eating less food in an eating window. And so you had fewer calories. But, then Jason Fung came out with the obesity code, and we learned about the role of insulin in a new way, and how, having high levels of insulin keeps you from tapping into your fat stores efficiently. And insulin is anti-lipolytic. So
you can say fat stores here. It's safe.
I can.
Yes.
Yeah. On Facebook, they're dinging
naughty,
me. If
naughty
you say
there.
the word, we're getting in trouble on the Facebook group, and the moderators tell someone you're almost fat adapted. Facebook is calling that bullying.
You're like, no, it was a compliment.
No, that's a good thing. Fat adapted is a good thing, but artificial intelligence does not like that. Anyway, if you want to tap into your fat stores effectively, you do not want to have high levels of insulin all the time. And hyperinsulinemia, high levels of insulin all the time, are very prevalent, and they're connected to so many of our diseases today. But they're also, if you're overweight, like I certainly was when I was 210 pounds, you probably have really high fasting insulin levels. So you want to bring your insulin levels down. And fasting is really the best way to do that. But also, when I read the obesity code and learned that, something called the cephalic phase insulin response is when you have a sweet taste. Like, let's say you're drinking a Diet Coke because it's got 0 calories and it's the dieter's best friend. Well, your brain knows that sweetness is coming in. And the way that we were designed, whenever sweetness comes in, that's going to be honey or fruit or sugar or some kind of form of glucose coming to your body. So your brain says, oop, sugar's coming in, even if it's a diet soda, and you pump out some insulin.
Ooh, I'm so glad you mentioned this. I'm going to take a quick break. I want to share something about hint water that will just fall right in line with this. We'll be right back. Okay, so when you're talking about the Diet Coke, I got to share a story. Have you ever had hint water?
Yes.
Okay, so the gal who founded hint water, Kara Golden's a buddy of mine, and she was a Diet Coke addict. And she was a Diet Coke addict, and she couldn't lose weight, but she, couldn't be the Diet Coke because it's got no calories, right? And just as an experiment, she stops drinking the Diet Coke because the doctors can't figure out why she can't lose weight, blah, 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 blah. Drops the Diet Coke, loses the weight, right? And then she starts making these waters with a little bit of like fruit, skin for the essential oils, and the rest is history. Now she's got this amazing beverage company. But, I think people don't consider that the sweet taste could trigger this type of thing.
Well, I do have some bad news about the hint water. Also, if you're fasting clean, you don't want to have fruity flavored water either.
Right, but you could have this when you're not fasting.
In your eating window, 100%. I actually love hint water.
Blackberry sparkling. Yes.
Yep, in my eating window. Yes. So you want to keep your insulin low by not having anything sweet coming in. Diet sodas do a lot more than just make the sweetness, because they also, your gut microbiome, so many things.
There's nothing positive to be said about a diet soda.
No, there really
nothing.
isn't.
There's not one thing. I mean,
No.
The biggest failed experiment with us as lab rats.
Yeah. We really are very much lab rats in so many ways with this whole, chemistry, better living through chemistry. But, to keep your insulin, to keep your body from thinking food's coming in, you want to avoid anything that's sweet or anything that your brain is going to think is food. So you want to avoid all the flavored products, flavored coffees, flavored waters. Don't put lemon wedges in there. Save all that for your eating window. You want water that tastes like water. You want black coffee, plain tea, because the bitter flavor profile is not associated with, you're going to need insulin to manage this. So that's why the coffee and the tea are okay. So plain water, plain sparkling water, black coffee, black tea, plain tea, green tea is also fine. Avoid the fancy herbal teas with names like apple cinnamon delight. Because your brain's going to be like, oh, this is going to be delicious. And then again, you're anticipating that food. So the first fasting goal is keeping insulin down. The second is we want to tap into our fat for fuel. Because that's one of the best features of living an intermittent fasting lifestyle is how much great energy and mental clarity you get while you're fasting. Your body taps into your fat stores. You've depleted your liver glycogen sufficiently over time. So now you're actually making ketones, even if you're not ketogenic while you're eating. You're ketogenic when you're fasting. You're tapping into your fat stores and burning your own fat for fuel. fueling your brain, great mental clarity. So to make sure you're tapping into your fat stores, you do not want to put fat in your coffee. You don't want to add the bulletproof MCT oil. You just want to drink black coffee because you want to tap into your fat source for fuel. You also want to avoid having, exogenous ketones, that sort of thing. And then the third goal for the clean fast is you want to increase autophagy. And I'm sure you've heard of autophagy in the health and wellness world. And that's our body's self-cleaning system. And it comes on in the background when we're not eating. So when we're fasting, our body has to scrounge around to see what's in the pantry. And so it recycles old junky proteins and that sort of thing. So you don't want to have anything like bone broth during the fast if you're trying to have increased autophagy.
And in order to trigger autophagy, like how long do you have to go? At what point do you trigger autophagy?
See, autophagy is not so much like an on-off switch as it is more of like a dimmer switch. And there are many things that we can do that actually lead to increased autophagy. For example, exercise. Every person experiences some autophagy. You just may not be having enough of it if you're living the standard American diet, eating all the time, constantly fed, sedentary. You're going to have really low levels of autophagy going on. Your body isn't able to do much cleaning. But with intermittent fasting, you're able to ramp it up. Even drinking coffee is linked to increased autophagy. Exercise, like I said.
Anything you can say that's good about coffee, I'm just like, just keep it going.
Okay, good.
It is like
I'm glad.
Coffee's like my favorite food group.
I love coffee. It's very important to an intermittent faster. That good black coffee, organic, lots of polyphenols. But if you started off on day one and you'd never done any fasting and you were not fat adapted, you're not going to have increased autophagy. But I read a lot of the work of Dr. Mark Mattson. Do you know who he is? Mm-mm. He worked for Johns Hopkins. Do you remember that article that came out December of what year is it? I've lost track of time. December of 2019. It came out in the New England Journal of Medicine. Mark Mattson wrote it. It was about intermittent fasting and all the health benefits associated with it. It was big news in the community. Suddenly people were, it was on the Today Show. It was on everything right after Christmas of 2019. And suddenly people were talking about the health benefits. So I've read Mark Mattson's work for years. He's, does neurological type stuff for Johns Hopkins. And he's actually an intermittent faster himself. But he has written a lot about how, ketosis and flipping that metabolic switch, they're all linked. So when you're doing those things that flip that metabolic switch, that you get into, being fat adapted and in the state of ketosis, that's the same state where your body is going to be ramping up autophagy. So autophagy and ketosis are not the same thing, but they happen in the same state of the body. They both kind of ramp up at the same time. So if you're, fasting enough so that you're getting into ketosis here and there, you can be sure that you're also having some ramped up autophagy. I mean, just like anything, you don't want too much autophagy. You don't need to fast for 7 days, and you just, intermittent fasting gives you those benefits day to day.
Well, here's a great segue then. So, because there are so many variations on how to do intermittent fasting, right? It's like, everything from just stopping eating after dinner and have a later breakfast to 5-2s and 8 hours. So is there a best? How do you know what to do?
That's a great question. And in my book that just came out in 2020, Fast, Feast, Repeat, I have sections on all those different types. We've got the eating window approach, also known as time restricted eating. And that's what, the 8-hour diet was all about, an 8-hour eating window, which of course wasn't really enough for weight loss for most people because you're not really spending much time in that fat burning state with 8 hours.
Well, especially if you could eat whatever you wanted during
I know that's true. But fat burning starts to ramp up for most people, around hour 18 of the fast. It really, there's a graph that you're just really ramps up and starts to increase during that time. It's not just a straight up linear graph. It's like a J, it goes up faster after 18 hours. So, depending on what your goals are, you can design a fasting lifestyle that will help you meet them. My husband never needed to lose any weight. He does a loose 16-8 for the health benefits. He's a PhD chemistry professor and he's sold on those health benefits. And he feels so much better not eating breakfast. He just gets up, drinks a little coffee, doesn't eat breakfast, goes to work, comes home for lunch. He has dinner. That's it. On the other hand, if you're someone who has been obese or overweight for a long time restricted eating might not quite be enough for you. You may need an alternate daily fasting approach, maybe something like 36-12, where you're fasting for 36 hours, and then you have a 12-hour, we call that an up day in the fasting world. And, that's, your refeed day where you're eating well, feeding your body so that it doesn't feel like you're overly restricting. And, you could follow a program like that indefinitely. There's a lot of research on alternate daily fasting and the safety, and how it's good for our bodies metabolically. It doesn't tend to slow our metabolic rates. There's an in-between area, where you can have some days where you have eating windows, and then maybe every Monday you have a 36-hour fast, and then Tuesday is an up day, and then the other days you have 5-hour windows. And you just really can design a program that fits your lifestyle and what your needs are.
I love that so much. This has been my thought process in all this is, I started out in this world as an exercise physiologist. And one of the things that you are taught in school is that you need to cross train. That, you would never think, okay, you only do one type of exercise. You're always taught, you need to do some flexibility and some strength work and some cardiovascular training. And yet in dieting, it's like, well, you should eat. I've even read this. You should eat the same time every day. You should have your 3 meals. And I'm like, shouldn't you cross train your diet too?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't you make your body go, it should be able to go, we skipped a meal. All right. It's just, we should be able to do that and have caloric variability, just like we had exercise variability.
It's true. Our bodies, they love to adapt to anything that's the same day in and day out. And you know that from the exercise world. And the same is true with eating. If you eat the exact same amount of food every day, even with intermittent fasting, your body can adapt to that. I'm just one of those people. Fortunately, I tend to, be great at listening to my body, especially now. And some days I'll be like, I need to have lunch and dinner today. I'll open my window at 11 o'clock and have something to eat, and I'll have a 2-meal day or whatever. And then the next day I'm busy and maybe I don't have time to eat till 5. And it all just, I just really listen to my body and eat more when I need to.
So do you tend to go between 1 and 2 meals a day?
Yes. I call myself a 1 meal a day person because I really only eat one actual meal most days. But, a funny thing happened. We had the first 1 meal a day group on Facebook. It's now archived, but we started that group in 2015 when I was still very much in early days of intermittent fasting for me. And it was we were the first people really talking about eating 1 meal a day, but it was within a flexible approach. It wasn't like 1 plate, 1 hour, 23 hours of fasting, 1 hour. No, it was always, think of it like a multi-course meal. So I would always have my 1 meal a day in kind of a 5-hour window where I would start with like maybe an appetizer course, my snack. And then later I would have my main meal, but it definitely wasn't 2 meals. And, it wasn't at lunchtime. It was all kind of grouped around that dinner hour. So that's my loose 1 meal a day. That now though, people are like, you're not doing 1 meal a day unless it's 23-1. Although I saw a really funny graphic somebody shared that, those crazy Facebook ads that they're trying to sell you plans and things.
Uh-huh.
So there was one like, look at your foot shape to determine your best intermittent fasting plan. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And there was one foot shape where you had to do 24-0. I'm like, what is that? Do you fast until you die? You're doing 24-0. That doesn't even make
is
sense.
It that there is no one with that foot type? So that's how they're getting away with it.
I don't know.
But that brings up, all right, since we know that men are not hairy women, men and women are different. What are the different considerations for women in fasting?
I think that there's a lot of confusion there, even among people that I really respect and listen to in the intermittent fasting world about women. We do have different bodies. We do not react well to over restriction. But intermittent fasting is not equivalent to over restriction. And I think that's where people get confused. They assume that a woman who's doing intermittent fasting is also being overly restrictive within that paradigm. And that's not true. We don't do well with over restriction, whether we're eating for 16 hours a day in an overly restrictive format or whether we're eating 5 hours a day in an overly restrictive format. Women should not over restrict their diets and over exercise. That is bad for us. But if you are doing intermittent fasting, even with, a 4-hour window, if you're nourishing your body well and you're not living in a restrictive way, your body is going to be fine. It's the people who have, trained themselves to eat diet meals and they eat a little diet dinner and they say, oh, I'm intermittent fasting. That's not going to be good for you.
Yeah. And then they go do CrossFit.
Yeah. Your body's going to freak out about that. But your body would also not like it if you were eating all day long, tiny little amounts. And
oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. So when I first came out and said we shouldn't be snacking, it was like, it was, you would think that I was a crazy
Heresy.
person. I know. I mean, it was like, I go, no, really, I'm thinking about what happens every time we eat. This doesn't make sense, So I just underscoring that if all you get from this right now is that I think we focused for so long about what we should be eating. And then we went to when we should be eating. And you know what? You got to look at both what and when.
You do. It all plays a part. Yep. It absolutely all plays a part. You need to put the nourishing foods in because literally they run our whole bodies. We can't do the things we need to do, at the cellular level without the nutrients.
And what are your top favorite nourishing foods?
I love avocados and I really love beans.
Which ones?
I like black beans, but I don't think there's a single bean I don't like.
Huh.
Honestly.
You like lima beans?
I love lima beans.
Well, you are
even
Southern.
When I was a kid. See, my grandmother, and she made butter beans, which are not exactly like lima beans. They're brown.
Yeah, I don't
and
like
they're
those
even
either.
Better.
I like black. I like black beans. Yep. And garbanzo beans. I'm always in a fight. Dave Asprey is one of my closest friends, and he is just completely anti garbanzo beans. So I'll tell you a story. I'm always messing with him with this. I gave him this birthday present. I wrapped all of these cans of garbanzo beans and he got those. He came over and spent the night, and in the guest bedroom, I put hummus in the bed. He's like, unbelievable. It's the running joke. So if you see him, get him.
Well, listen, next time you talk to Dave, tell him I would like to challenge him to try the clean fast for 1 month.
Oh boy, that's a throwdown.
I just would like for him to try it. I tried the bulletproof. I did all that back in the day when it first came out. I read the bulletproof diet. I don't feel well with all that fat. And I would like him to try the clean fast and just see. I bet he would be amazed, but he would have to give it some time.
All right. I'm gonna not touch that one.
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave that right where it is.
Leave it out there.
I drink bulletproof coffee every morning, but I just drink it black. I just drink the bulletproof
you drink the
beans.
brand.
Yeah, I drink.
Yeah. You're drinking the brand, but you're not putting the oil in there.
No, I don't. I think too for women, there's a lot of fat in these diets that will work for a man that will not work for a woman. So,
well, I also went through a very interesting study. Do you know Tim Spector? He's from the UK. He's the author of Spoon Fed. He's a researcher. He has done twin studies. He's a big gut guy. He wrote Spoon Fed. He's associated with the British Gut Project. Well, he's doing a study now, the PREDICT studies, and I took part in that. And basically, long story short, my body doesn't clear fat quickly. Ah,
well, that's why that would feel rotten for you to do that.
Yeah.
Now, what about does taking something like lipase help, or it just?
Well, I just need to eat less fat at a concentrated period of time. It just takes my body longer to clear it out. So I don't avoid fat. I'm not low fat, but my personalized dietary recommendations based on they analyze your gut microbiome, you wear a CGM, they look at, they feed you these test muffins and you have to test your blood and they look at how you clear the fat, how you clear the blood glucose, all that. It's really very cutting edge. I think something was just published in Nature from his group. So they're awesome, doing some awesome work, but it didn't surprise me that I cleared fat slowly because I never did well with a ketogenic approach where I was eating really high fat foods. I always felt very inflamed, and turns out that's why.
There you go.
Yep. I bet Dave clears fat quickly.
I bet he does too.
That'd be my prediction.
I've been around him enough. I'm much more of a better protein person. That's the one where I remember trying to be a vegan and I just felt terrible. So, and I'm going to leave us with this. I really think that one of the things that a lot of the diets take us away from is connecting the dots between what we eat and how we feel. And it is so critical. Like one of the single best tools is to keep a food journal, keep a diary, and just really connect those dots. It doesn't matter if someone says something's healthy if you eat it and you feel crappy, so
exactly,
don't take yourself out of the equation. And that's what I love here is that you can design an intermittent fasting protocol that works for how it makes you feel and your lifestyle, which is the most important at all.
It really is, because that's when you're going to be successful. It has to fit your life.
Yes.
You have to enjoy it.
Amen. So people can go and hang out with you, get into your groups. I'm going to, and I know you have a couple different ones. So I'm going to give a link and we'll make it easy. It'll be jjvirgin.com/Gin, GIN. And that will link up to your groups, which right now is on Facebook. We'll see. And we've got another one off Facebook, and we'll see what's happening out there in the world as things get weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about that.
There you go.
So yeah, jjvirgin.com/Gin, GIN. And
gin and tonic.
Gin, how many times have you said that? Just
Billions.
like me saying virgin, like Virgin Mary,
Yeah.
It has been such an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited I ran into you on Clubhouse.
Oh, me too.
Yes. And hopefully we'll get to hang out in person one day.
Definitely.
Awesome.
I'm going to count on that.
Me too. All right. I had so much fun during that interview. I'm trying to figure out how to get Jen to come to my house as soon as possible and hang out. I can tell this is going to be a longtime girlfriend. And if you'd love to hang out with her, reminder, you can join her groups. And you can do that by going to jjvirgin.com/Gin, GIN. And if you love this podcast as much as I did, you don't want to miss the other ones. So go to subscribe to jj.com so you never miss a show. See you next time.